Let's talk about Miami. They look good. They look really good. And with the unfortunate injury to Aaron Rodgers, I had the Dolphins getting the playoffs, but I had the Jets winning the division. But with the unfortunate injury to Aaron Rodgers, I think this team is going to win the division and win it quite easily. Knock on wood if everybody, particularly Tua, stays healthy. But they go on the road in my, my favorite segment of the week, which is... And I said the Dolphins would cover, so thank you, Miami Dolphins. But they won in New England 24-17 in Foxborough over the Patriots. I'll touch on the Patriots later, but we kind of know what they are. They're very, 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 very limited and not that well coached. But the point is, let's talk about a team that is well coached and has excellent players. That's the Miami Dolphins. So Tua played relatively well. Completed 21 of 30 of his passes, 70% completion, which is excellent. 249 yards, a touchdown, a pick. And while obviously it was a pick, my man Christian Gonzalez, who I loved out of the draft out of Oregon, made an incredible play in the fourth quarter, leaping over. I forgot who it was. I think it was Tyreek down the left sideline to make that play. It was excellent. QBR 75, which is pretty good. 0 to 100. Pass rating of 92, which is solid there. So listen, we know Belichick defenses are always good year to year, and that's what I expected, throughout the season. At least New England's defense would be good and keep them in a lot of games, and it has the last two. Just the offense hasn't come along for the ride. What I have been most impressed by with the Miami Dolphins, and frankly, it's the reason I think they're the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs, who I'll get into in the next segment, is that they added an aspect to their game, and it's not like they didn't already have the personnel to do it, but I think they even more so now, and it kind of makes sense given Mike McDaniel, the head coach's background. It makes a lot of sense why they do this. The Dolphins have now added a legitimate, really good running game to what was already an explosive offense in the passing game. Again, we saw what Tua and Tyreek did last week against a clueless defensive mind in Brandon Staley. Belichick is not Brandon Staley when it comes to coaching defense, obviously, so you knew he was going to put more attention on Tyreek Hill, who, by the way, had a okay game, didn't exactly have a big explosive day, 5 catches, 40 yards. But again, I said Jalen Waddle I thought would have a big game. I said he'd catch a couple touchdowns. He did not. And by the way, Tyreek did have a touchdown. But Belichick bobbled up Tyreek, which opened it up for Waddle, who unfortunately went into concussion protocol, I think today, so obviously wish him the very best. He can get back as soon as possible for the Dolphins. I'll reiterate about Tua. Well, actually, let me talk about the running game. What I think was impressive about the running game is that this is a Patriots defense that against the Philadelphia Eagles, maybe a top 3-4 running football team in the NFL. We saw what they did to the Vikings this past Thursday. They were running up and down the field. DeAndre Swift and what they were doing with that offensive line. And New England mostly kept them contained. I mean, they did it, and I know it's a rainstorm, or wasn't a rainstorm, it was just kind of wet and rainy in Foxborough, but they did a pretty solid job on Philadelphia. They could not stop Miami. Whether that was because they were paying so much attention to Tyreek and because they said basically, we're just going to if we get beat by Miami, it's going to be because they beat us on these long, methodical drives, which they kind of did for majority of the night. But Raheem Mostert had a big night, 18 carries for 121 yards, had a big rushing touchdown there in the second half, a couple touchdowns in total. But the way Miami's been able to develop this running game, and again, Mike McDaniel is from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. And I don't think there's any run designer more creative and better than Kyle Shanahan. And Mike McDaniel comes from that tree. He was the Niners offensive coordinator just a couple of years ago, and so he has kind of a background in that. But I'll reiterate with Tua what I said last week. And while you didn't see it quite as much because it's Foxborough, probably, kind of, I shouldn't say nasty weather, but not perfect weather. Certainly it's not like playing in a dome. Sunday Night Football, it's Boston. We understand how that works. What has blown me away about Tua is I knew he had a solid arm. What I've seen the last couple weeks, I haven't seen before from Tua, even dating back to his days in Alabama. He's not Josh Allen in terms of arm talent. Dude is throwing missiles out there. I mean, whether it's deep balls, whether it's over the middle, guy is making some tough throws to some of these wide receiving targets. By the way, I thought Miami did a good job as well getting that one kid. They got a couple of guys involved, Braxton Berrios and the River kid, River Craycraft, I guess is how you say his name, did a good job getting those guys involved as well when the attention was paid so much to Tyreek Hill. But these screenplays, these get the ball out of your hands quickly, it's kind of a little bit similar to Dallas in that regard. Like, get the ball out of your hands quick, let these receivers go make plays, and occasionally we're going to ask Tua or Dak, like I was talking about earlier, to make the occasional tough throw, and both guys are fully capable of making that. But I don't know if it's Tua putting on muscle in the offseason, which he very clearly has, but guy looks accurate. Guy is taking shots down the field. Guy is making tough throws over the middle. You got to love what you're seeing from Miami. And listen, when you look at the AFC today, albeit we're 2 weeks in, we still got 15 weeks to go, a lot can happen. But I still have the Kansas City Chiefs as the favorite in the conference. I do. More on that later. Miami, to me, today is the biggest threat. Passing game's great. Tua is healthy. Knock on wood for him. And now they have a running game. Remember, Miami last year was about middle of the pack. I think they were 15th, 16th in the league in terms of yards rushing per game. It was kind of a lot of, hey, Tua, go do it by yourself. But Mike McDaniel went in the offseason, was like, okay, I got a quarterback coming off of multiple concussion problems last year who has an injury history. Let's take a little bit of the weight off of him. If I do that, we can be an even more dynamic offense and a more diversified offense to a certain extent. We can do more. They address the offensive line. They have the last couple of years. Obviously, we know what Tyreek and Waddle bring to the table, but I really liked what I saw from the Miami Dolphins last night. And I think this is a team that's if you look at we talk about Dallas's upcoming schedule and the Niners' upcoming schedule. You look at Miami's upcoming schedule. They're better, undeniably better, by the way, than all four of the next four teams they play. They got 0-2 Denver in Miami next week. They got at the Bills. They're better than the Bills. Home against the Giants. Home against the Panthers. And then they have their next Sunday night game happens to be against the defending NFC champion Eagles in Philadelphia. And that is on October 22nd, so it'll be a little chilly in Philadelphia, bordering on cold because it is, out east at night, up east at night rather. But that'll be a tough test for them. But the next four games, they should take care of business. They're absolutely better than Denver, Buffalo, the Giants, and the Panthers. So for Miami, you got to feel great about where you're at as a roster in terms of what your identity is. I talked about this last week with Philly, right? Like, Philly knows what they are. Miami knows what they are. As for New England, I'm not sure they know what they are. I do, though. They're very limited at quarterback. Mac Jones didn't have a particularly great night. Had a really bad interception. Running game wasn't terribly, effective. They didn't commit to it all that much relative to how many times Mac Jones threw the ball. They're limited at wide receiver. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times during the night Chris Collinsworth keeps referring to Kendrick Bourne as Patriots' best receiver, Patriots' best receiver. He's not wrong, but if Kendrick Bourne's your best receiver, you've got some serious issues on the outside. Bill O'Brien had some really questionable play calls. They had that play, gosh, it was the 3rd and short or 4th and short where they ran. I mean, again, it's by that much they need to get the first down, and he runs an outside reverse. Listen, I'm not saying you should just run it up the gut, I formation, but at least be a little more creative. And I don't know if that type of play call was terribly creative in that regard. But listen, New England's limited. The most entertaining play, or moment rather, of the Patriots season through 2 games is Bill Belichick Gronk spiking a challenge flag right at the foot of a ref, which I thought was pretty hilarious. It was the ultimate Belichick moment, but. Listen, New England is kind of who I thought they were. I figured they'd lose their first couple of games. They got the Jets at the Jets next week. That's a game that with Aaron Rodgers, I'd obviously pick the Jets. But obviously with Zach Wilson now, we could very well get... Remember when Zach and Mac... That is not a good combination of quarterback play. When they played last year... It's a game that became known for why Zach Wilson got benched, because he was asked, hey, do you take any responsibility for the loss? And he said no, and Zach Wilson got benched for Mike White. It was that game where Mac and Zach squared off, and the ball game was tied 3 points to 3 points with seconds remaining in regulation, and then the kid for New England returns it for a touchdown to win it for the Patriots. We could be in for a rough one. Next week in the Meadowlands. Okay, so my guy Alfred works here at the Grid and works at Jets home games. This may be a rough one, buddy. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.